All right, hey everyone, Jammer here. Jammer's Wrestling Magazine Collection YouTube channel, as you all know. And you're probably wondering, where have I been? I haven't uploaded a video in well over a week. And honestly, it's just because on the days off, I wanted to do it. I ended up getting called into work. And then on my days off that I wanted to do it, when I wasn't working, the girlfriend was home. And, it's like I had no time to do one of these weird little zany videos for you viewers out there. So today I'm going to hit you with a good one. I went through, it took me a few hours to do this, to go through. I found all the magazine covers that had World Tag Team Champions on the cover. So I thought it would be an interesting little video here to go through. I'm talking about all the organizations I could find, not just WWF, not just WCW. I'm talking Memphis, AWA, whatever I can find. I got it. It's in a pile here. I'm going to do them, though, in an interesting order. I'm going to do like WWF section, WCW section, and of course the miscellaneous section. So let's start out with the WWF, right? That's what we all probably remember, a majority of us watching the WWF as kids and teenagers. So let's go through, and I start off with Inside Wrestling, December 1980. We get Pedro Morales and Bob Backlund. Yes, they were WWF Tag Team Champions. They beat the Samoans for the belts at the that show in Shea Stadium in New York. They didn't hold on to the belts long. Actually, they were stripped pretty much right when they won them, because back then Bob Backlund was WWF champion, so you couldn't have two belts at the same time. So sorry, Pedro. But because of that, Pedro did become one of the few who are known as the Triple Crown winners. He was the first, actually, to be the Triple Crown winner. So way to go, Pedro Morales there. The next one, December 83, Inside Wrestling. We have Afa and Sika right there, the Wild Samoans. I believe those are the WWF Tag Team titles at this time. I'm pretty sure those are the same belts that Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson won. So I'm going to say that they are. And plus, with the date here being 83, it makes sense for them that those are the title belts. So there we see the Samoans make the cover with the tag titles. Next up, I guess this was out of order. Oops. Well, we're going to go back in time a year. Fuji and Tanaka with the tag titles. Or sorry, that's not Tanaka, that's Saito, Mr. Saito. Fuji and Saito with the tag titles with Captain Lou Albano. So I put that in the wrong order, but still, same belts, so it makes sense then that I was correct. Those are the tag titles of the WWF that the Samoans have. Okay, so now we fast forward a bit. Guys like Wyndham and Rotunda, Sheik and Volkov didn't make the cover with the tag titles. Let me raise this up a bit here. There we go. The first ones I have here at the tag titles are from The Wrestler, March 86. And we get Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake, the Dream Team. They defeated Rotundo and Wyndham, I believe, in August of 85 for those tag titles. So there we go. Valentine and Beefcake make the cover. And in this Wrestling Eye magazine from April 88, I know it's a few years later, but it shows Beefcake with the WWF tag title there. It's a good looking shot of Beefer with the belt. Of course, those belts were silver. And I know I'll get to it in a second here, but when I did a thing on 1987, I talked about, of course, this right here, the Hart Foundation, right? The tag champions. The belts are silver. They defeated the British Bulldogs, who, by the way, I don't believe I have photos of the Bulldogs with the tag titles. Actually, it makes me... I do remember I did have, if I can find it here, but I don't think they have the belts. I guess I can't even find it now. There was a wrestling program with the Bulldogs. Oh, never mind. I do have it. So it's beat up to shit, though. But there's the Bulldogs with the tag titles. So the Hart Foundation beat the Bulldogs for them. I kind of forgot. I just had this till now. I got it in town here, actually, from a friend who who sold me some of his old wrestling magazines. So, but this is look, the cover's not even attached anymore. But yes, the Bulldogs, there's the cover of them with the belts. I try not to look at that because it is beat up to shit. But yes, the Hart Foundation beat the Bulldogs. And we have some more photos of the Harts here with the titles. There's a small photo there, Victory Sports Wrestling from Fall 87. Stripped the Harts of the tag belts. They did not do that, of course. The Harts ended up losing them, and I'll get to that in a moment. But here we have Bret on his own with that tag title belt from 87, even though this magazine is from 91. They used an old photo of Bret with the tag team title from 87 in his heel villain days. So, okay, here we go. Sports Review Wrestling, February 88, we get Strikeforce with the tag title. So there is a small photo of Strikeforce there with the belts. Now, I've said in the video 1987 that Strikeforce won the silver tag titles from the Hart Foundation. I believe I'm incorrect on that because I was watching old primetime wrestling last night from 1987, and the Hart Foundation were defending the tag titles against the Rougeaus on Superstars, and they had the gold belts. They were definitely gold. So I'm guessing they switched them right before they lost them to Strikeforce because this was September of 87. The Harts had the titles that were gold. They're going to lose them in November to Strikeforce, which would be coming up just months from that match. So it looks like Strikeforce were the gold champions. They didn't have the silver belts. Sports Review Wrestling, July 89, we see Demolition down there at the tag titles. Axe and Smash would hold those belts 3 times in their careers. We have another photo here of Demolition with the tag belts from Sports Review Wrestling, September 1990. So there they are again. Get a good look at that. Axe, you can certainly see the belt around Axe's waist, not so much on Smash. Demolition would lose the belts to the Hart Foundation, and unfortunately, the photo they used for that, I'm going to have to show this magazine again in a bit, but it's right here from Sports Review Wrestling, December 90. There's the foundation with the tag titles, but that's from 1987. Look how they're dressed, right? And the belts are silver. So I guess they couldn't find a current photo to use, so they used that one. Again, I'll show that magazine in a little bit for another reason. They lost them to the Nasty Boys at WrestleMania 7, who would lose them to, right here, the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal with the tag titles from SummerSlam 91. This is from December 91, Inside Wrestling. Good shot there of the Legion of Doom. They had a great, that match with the Nasty Boys at SummerSlam 91 was pretty much a hardcore match, right? They beat the shit out of each other with weapons, and there was no disqualification. It was one hell of a match. And still to this day, I know this is a little side note here. Still to this day, I feel SummerSlam 91 was before its time. If you go back and watch that event, you start off with a hot 6-man tag match that just had, back then, it had a lot of crazy stuff going on, and considering who was in it, you had Power and Glory and the Warlord against Steamboat, Bulldog, and Texas Tornado. But man, the babyface team, like Steamboat especially, bumped like crazy for the villains. Then you get the technical match with Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect, which you just didn't really see that often back then. You get the Nasty Boys and the Legion of Doom in the hardcore match. You get Boss Man and the Mountie kicking out of each other's finishes, which was you never saw that. The only time you ever saw that back then was pretty much Hogan, right? He would do it. But man, it was definitely a pay-per-view worth watching. So they lose the belts too. Money Incorporated and Natural Disasters and Money Inc. No covers with those guys, but I do have this cover of the Steiner Brothers, and sadly the belts aren't even really with them then. They definitely photoshopped the belts on the Steiners there. That's the closest you're going to get to seeing the Steiner Brothers holding any titles on any covers. I kid you not, I went through, I thought, man, there has to be WCW tag titles or something. Nothing. I found photos of the Steiners on the covers, but never with the belts. So that was kind of disappointing. The Wrestler of May 94, we get the Quebecers here, a small photo of the Quebecers with the tag titles. That's from the Royal Rumble when they beat Bret and Owen. So that's nice to see Jacques and Pierre with the tag belts there on the cover. From the next time now we see it is the 94 year in review. We get this photo of Shawn Michaels with the tag titles when Big D's got his. He's holding it down to on his left side so you can't see it, I'm guessing, because it's definitely not on the right side. But there they are, the tag team champions, Shawn and Diesel. And that magazine seems kind of hard to find, I believe. I found it by accident. I didn't even know it existed. And I love that era of wrestling, so I had to own that. But it's a cool magazine to have for photos and just little clips inside it. You know, nothing, so you're not going to learn anything from it, but it's just cool to have. And last but not least for the WWF one, we get Wrestle America, where we see Skip and Zip the Body Donnas with the tag team titles with Sunny there on the cover for WrestleMania 12. And that's it for WWF, which is weird, right? Like, a lot of great champions after that. You had the Smoking Guns, you had the New Age Outlaws, which is Billy Gunn again, but still none of them ever made a cover that I saw. No Godwins, not even the Legion of Doom's second title reign from 1997. I didn't see that on any covers. So that's the WWF one, though, right there, okay? Next up, I give you WCW, the NWA, whatever, Mid-Atlantic, whatever you want to call it. We start out with Inside Wrestling, November 82. We have the tag team champions, Ole Anderson and Stan, the Lariat Hansen right there. They are the NWA World Tag Team Champions. I believe, if I remember correctly, they won the belt in a tournament over Wahoo McDaniel and Don Morocco. And they ended up getting stripped of the belts because Ole didn't want to work Mid-Atlantic anymore, and he was working strictly in Georgia. And those belts apparently were owned by Jim Crockett somehow, even though they were the NWA World Tag Team Championship. You know, if you think they would be defended around the territories like Flair was with the NWA title, apparently not. So they stripped them, and the makeshift team of Don Cornotto and Sergeant Slaughter won them in a fake tournament in Japan. They were awarded the belts pretty much. That's from Sports Review Wrestling Annual Spring 83 here. But when I see a photo there of Don Cornotto and Sergeant Slaughter as the NWA World Tag Team Champions, they would lose those titles to Rick Steamboat and Jay Youngblood. Here it is, July 1983, Inside Wrestling. Again, this is the event that was like pretty much started Starrcade. It was a big night in Greensboro there for the tag belts and the cage. Look at Don Cornotto there, a bloody mess. Just same with Steamboat and Youngblood. Like, it was I don't think that match even exists on video. I haven't came across it if it does. I think maybe they show a clip of it on Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, if I remember correctly. It's been a few years since I went through the Mid-Atlantic shows. I did them one time on the network during COVID era. And they were actually quite enjoyable because I never saw any of that old wrestling back then. But they would, of course, lose the belts to the Briscoes. And at Starrcade 83, Youngblood and Steamboat would win them back here. And this is from Sports Review Wrestling, March 84. So there we see Steamboat and Youngblood, once again, tag team champions. They lose those titles to, I believe, the Briscoes again. And then I think, or maybe they gave them up. Maybe they split. I know the Briscoes won them again. Maybe Steamboat retired and they got split up. And the Briscoes, I think maybe it was Wahoo McDaniel and Mark Youngblood who feuded with them for the belts for a bit. Anyways, none of them on the cover at all. I don't get covers again of belts until May 84 when we see Don Cornotto and Cowboy Bob Orton with the tag titles. This is from The Wrestler, May 84. So yeah, there they are. Don Cornotto once again, tag team champion. This time with Cowboy Bob. And he would win it again with Ivan Koloff. But they ended up losing them to Dusty Rhodes and Manny Fernandez. Now, I don't have any covers with them on it. Dusty and Manny lost them back to Ivan and Nikita. This is as close as we're going to get to see Ivan and Nikita with the belts. There's Ivan with the belt around his waist. Nikita doesn't have it there. This is Inside Wrestling, March 85, though. So there we see the Koloffs had the belts. They lost them to the Rock and Roll Express. This is February 86 with the Rock and Roll Express with the belts there. We also see the Road Warriors there with the AWA tag titles, but it's not a good shot of it, unfortunately. But We see the R&Rs with the tag belts. They would lose them to the Koloffs, win them back, lose them again, only this time they would lose them to, well, that's February 86 Inside Wrestling, in case I forgot to mention it, but Sports Review Wrestling, June 86, we see the new champs, Beautiful Bobby, Loverboy Dennis, the Midnight Express, there they are at the belts, defeating the Rock and Roll Express for those, holding on to them for quite a bit of time before losing them back to the Rock and Roll Express. Here we go, Victory Sports Wrestling, we have Fall 86, there they are, with the tag titles around their waists. Those are, of course, those old big NWA tag belts from many, many years. We'd see it one more time, Inside Wrestling, December 86 with those belts. Rock and Roll Express, they regained the World Tag Team titles, they say. They ended up being 4-time tag team champions. And their 4th time, Inside Wrestling, October 87, they had these titles, the newer style NWA tag team titles, the ones that we'd be familiar with all the way up to around 1992. So there they are, Ricky and Robbie's last NWA tag titles, a part of the Mid-Atlantic. Of course, as years gone by, I believe the Rock and Roll Express are like 9 or 10-time World Tag Team Champions of the NWA because of the other NWA territories they worked, because even in the 90s and early 2000s and such, there were still NWA territories, just it wasn't like it was in the 70s, 80s and such. They would lose the belts to Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, who would in turn lose the belts to Barry Windham and Lex Luger. So there they are at the tag titles. This is August 88 for the Wrestler. Interesting that a magazine cover even has these two with the belts, because they didn't hold them long, maybe a month if that, because Barry turned on Lex to join the Horsemen, with that creating new tag champions in Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, and here they are here. Magazine I've showed many times, so no stranger to it, but there they are, the tag champions, Arn and Tully. That's PWI December 88. Arn and Tully would lose the tag titles in September of 88, which is ironic because this is December. But as you know, the magazines came out way ahead of time, months ahead of time of schedule of things. They would lose them to the United States Tag Team Champions, Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton. That's right, Sweet Stan and Beautiful Bobby. The Midnight Express now with Sweet Stan instead of Loverboy Dennis. And the funny thing is, Bobby and Stan were also the U.S. Tag Team Champions. So here we go. We have double champions, the Midnight Express holding both titles. This is January 1989 of The Wrestler. Of course, you couldn't keep both titles, so they were stripped of the U.S. Tag titles. They went up in a tournament, and the Fantastics won those belts from Ron Simmons and Eddie Gilbert at the Clash of the Champions season's beatings in December of 88 tournament final. Nothing with the Fantastics with any titles, unfortunately, on the magazine covers, but they were great U.S. tag champs and great, UWF tag champs and Mid-South, I should say, and World Class Championship Wrestling. They held the tag titles there, but Fantastics never did win the big one in the NWA or WCW. Next up now, that's 89. We go into actually March 93 for our next one. So we missed a lot of champions there. You had the Road Warriors. The NWA Tag Team Champions were the Road Warriors. I did not see one magazine cover with the Road Warriors on it. Next up, you had Dr. Death Steve Williams and Mike Rotundo. The Varsity Club, nothing there. Then the Steiners, nothing. The Freebirds, nothing. There was nothing with those guys. Nothing with Doom, Ron Simmons, and Butch Reed. Nothing with Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko or Dustin Rhodes and Ricky Steamboat. A lot of these champions didn't make the cover. We didn't get anything until March 93, the PWI Year-End Awards with Steve Dr. Death Williams and Terry Bam Bam Gordy with the unified WCW/NWA World Tag Team titles. So let's do a little history here for people wondering, how do you have WCW, NWA Tag Team Champions when the belts are the same? Technically, right? So, all right. from what I understand, from what I've read over the years and what I can kind of piece together in all this, Jim Crockett had Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. He had the NWA World Tag Team titles and the Mid-Atlantic Tag Team titles. He'd eventually owned the Georgia National Tag Team titles. Like, he was, before Vince was buying territories, Jim Crockett was doing the same too down south. He was getting territories as well. Anyways, he ends up with all these belts. He ends up just having the NWA World Tag Team titles as well as the United States Tag Team titles, which were all NWA. And then, of course, in 88, Ted Turner bought out Crockett and changed the name from NWA to WCW, even though WCW was the name of the show that ran on TBS. World Championship Wrestling was Georgia Championship Wrestling, which was bought out by Jim Crockett, right? So if you're following me, you now understand Jim Crockett now owns pretty much Georgia. He owns it. He owns the name WCW. Okay, now, Ted Turner owns it. Changed the name to WCW. So now we have the NWA Tag Team Champions are still there. They're still being called the NWA Tag Team Champions. And at times it's still being called the NWA for some reason. But technically, Ted Turner wants it to be WCW. Now, the full turn didn't really come until 1991. That's when the names of the NWA belts were stopped altogether. The big gold belt, which was the NWA World Champion. Sting is technically an NWA World Champion. He won it at the Great American Bash, but is still NWA. 1991, he's the WCW champion. Ric Flair is the WCW champion. This just changes over. Now we have WCW tag titles. They're still using the old NWA tag belts for some reason, as that they end up taking those belts away and creating new ones, which I believe were debuted at Halloween Havoc, I think. I think Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko were the first ones to hold them. They won the NWA tag belts at the September Clash of the Champions off Bill Kazmaier and Rick Steiner. It was a tournament final, but they were the NWA belts. Then they got taken away and became the WCW belts, the new ones that you see Dr. Death holding right here, that I'm pointing at on his, it'd be my left, but his right-hand side. So in 1992, the NWA is still a thing, or trying to be a thing, and they contact WCW, who've already kind of pissed away the NWA like a year and a half earlier, and said, we want to bring back the NWA, we're going to bring back the tag titles, let's have a tournament. They had a tournament. It happened at the WCW Great American Bash 92. Doc and Gordy won them, defeating Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes in the finals. And then a few weeks later, defeated the Steiner brothers for the WCW tag titles, thus making unified tag team champions. What a really confusing time in wrestling to have, the two belts to me were always the same belts. It made no sense. And to this day, it still doesn't. It was such a weird, confusing time. Anyways, sorry for that little side trail, but now we hit with WCW. They would lose the belts to to Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham, who would lose them to Rick Steamboat and Shane Douglas, who would lose them to this tag team, the Hollywood Blondes. Now take a look here. Stunning Steve Austin has the WCW Tag Team title. Flying Brian has the NWA World Tag Team title because they were unified. So they would wear one belt each. I don't know why they did that, but that's what they did. They would have one belt each. And then eventually the NWA tag titles got just thrown away. They just got forgotten because the NWA name withdrew again from WCW. The NWA ended up going to ECW in 1993 to become NWA Eastern Championship Wrestling. All we had left was WCW. With that happening, we only have these titles here, the WCW Tag Team titles, and here are the Nasty Boys in this WCW magazine holding those belts. They're a nice looking title. A lot of great guys in the business held that version of the titles. Nasty Boys, of course, held them 3 times. And, a lot of Too Cold Scorpio and Marcus Bagwell held them. Arn Anderson and Paul Roma held them. And we even get to this tag team here who held them. Booker T and Stevie Ray, Harlem Heat, former WCW Tag Team Champions 10 times. Booker, of course, a 11-time Tag Team Champion because him and Test held the belts in the WWF in 2001. Harlem Heat, one more time. I got to cover them here from the PWI year-end awards. This is March 96. Here they are at the bottom with the tag titles. They won Tag Team of the Year that year. And that's it for WCW holding the tag belts for magazine covers, which is funny because, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall dominated with those belts too as the outsiders. And yeah, we don't have any of the new looking titles. The belts changed designs in late 97, I believe. Kevin, one of the belts was falling apart, and they just made new ones. A lot of great guys held those belts. Like the Steiners held that version. So did Nash and Hall. Kurt Hennig and Barry Windham did. Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko. I mean, you can go down the trail of guys up to, Sean O'Haire and Chuck Palumbo. There's been a lot of greats hold those belts, even in the WWF. Guys like Undertaker and Kane held them, and so pretty cool. So that's the WCW NWA World Tag Team title belts. Next up is the miscellaneous one. Now, this shouldn't take too long because there's not many, but for what you see, it's kind of neat. The first one I'm going to show is from August 84, Sports Review Wrestling. It's Tommy Rich and Eddie Gilbert with the Mid-Southern Tag Team titles, that being Memphis. Those are the Memphis tag titles. If you look closely, I don't know if you can see, it says AWA on the belt plate on the side. So the Memphis Wrestling Organization, which was called Mid-Southern Championship Wrestling, maybe, I'm not too sure entirely, but they ended up becoming the CWA, and then of course the USWA as time went on. They were affiliated with the AWA. So where other territories were affiliated with the NWA, Mid-Southern was for AWA. So that means if you went for the world title at the time, you went for the Nick Bonkwinkle's AWA world title. You didn't go for Ric Flair's NWA world title. So, these guys would go for the AWA world tag titles if they had the chance. And that's kind of neat to see that we saw the Memphis belts make the cover. Next up would be the Georgia National Tag Team titles, and that would be here, March 84, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the Road Warriors holding those titles. Those are the Georgia National Tag Team titles. They look really good, for that era. It's kind of a unique belt, but the Road Warriors definitely dominated Georgia with those titles. And Victory Sports Wrestling, Spring 85, we get a small shot of them here at the top there with those belts. Looks like it's from the same photo shoot. So pretty sweet. Inside Wrestling, December 85, we get Bring On the Road Glorias, says Arn and Ole Anderson, and these are the NWA National Tag Team titles, which means Georgia, because Jim Crockett now owns Georgia. So Arn and Ole were the NWA National Tag Team Champions. Those belts would go away. They would get just disappear, and the United States Tag Team Championships would be formed. There was a lot of great U.S. Tag Team Champions. You had, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane. You had, I believe, Ivan Koloff and Dick Murdoch held it. Barry Windham and Rugged Ronnie Garvin. A lot of greats. But for magazine covers, you get up here, Inside Wrestling, August 90. If you can see it, it's Flying Brian and the Z-Man. They are the U.S. Tag Team Champions. They defeated the Freebirds in a tournament final to win those belts. They would lose them to the Midnight Express, who would lose them to a Rick and Scott Steiner. And this is it here, Sports Review Wrestling, December 90. I showed it earlier for the Hart Foundation, but here it is at the bottom. Rick and Scott with the U.S. Tag Team titles. They would actually only hold those titles one time. Spring 91, here we see them again for Wrestling 91. It's from the same night. Rick and Scott, that's when they won the belts. They defeated, like I said, the Midnight Express for them. They would feud with the Nasty Boys for those titles, and they would end up winning the NWA World Tag titles from the Freebirds in 1991, thus being double champions, just like the Midnight Express. So only the Midnight Express and the Steiner brothers did that. The Steiners, of course, gave up the U.S. tag titles, and ironically, the Freebirds won them in the tournament. So that's kind of neat. Inside Wrestling, March 86. Here is a cool photo. It's Mike Rotundo and Barry Windham. And these are, I believe, yeah, the Florida Tag Team Champions. Those are the Florida United States Tag Team titles. So this is after the WWF Tag Team titles. And I remember seeing this magazine in books, like in old magazines for like, you can order this for $3 or whatever, back issues. I always thought these were the WWF Tag Team titles because it was black and white. And these were kind of like the same belt designs as those silver titles that Wyndham and Rotundo held, and Sheik and Volkov and such. But no, these are the Florida tag team titles. Barry and Mike had a reign with them down there. So that's kind of neat that it made the cover. Next up now, March 86 for PWI, we talk about the AWA World Tag Team titles. The Road Warriors do have the belts here. They're behind their Tag Team of the Year awards, but that's okay because there's a better photo coming up of them with those titles, and it's from this special. It's Pro Wrestling Illustrated presents the 20th anniversary special, and you can see the photo down here of Hawk and Animal from that same photo shoot. There's the AWA Tag Team titles. They look good, and the Road Warriors, of course, dominated the AWA. I believe they defeated Baron von Raschke and was it Crusher Blackwell? Maybe I'm not entirely sure. But they end up losing them to Jim Garvin and Steve Regal. And no, not Lord Steven, a different Steve Regal. They lost them, and then they went to the NWA, and the rest was history for them. Victory Sports Wrestling Summer 87, we get a rare shot here of Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, the Rockers, with the AWA World Tag Team titles. So that's Shawn's first major world championship in this sport. He held those belts twice with Marty in the AWA. And last but not least, we get the ECW Tag Team title on the cover. It's Raven from the... what do we got here falling out? I could wonder if that'd still work. No. We get Raven here with the ECW Tag Team title. The only time I ever saw ECW on the cover for a magazine with the belt. But there it is, Raven, ECW Tag Team Champion. So there you have it, a history of the tag team titles as seen on the covers of the magazines. I'm sure if I had all the WWF magazines and such, and all the WCW ones, I probably could have showed a lot more, let's be honest. But I think that's pretty good. I do know some wrestlers that I know have just never made the cover with the belts, which is weird. Either I guess they weren't champions long enough, or there just wasn't a good time to put them on the cover. I don't know what it may be, but the fact that we have some of the most random champions on covers here, and it's unique. It's a unique look at the tag team title history of magazine covers. So, who's everyone's favorite tag team champions? That's what I'd like to know. For me, in WCW, I was a fan of course, Barry and Lex. I did like their little reign. I think I like it because of how it ended. I thought it was such a cool ending. I was 7 years old at the time, and I remember just watching in disbelief that Barry Windham would turn on Lex to lose his own championship just to join the Four Horsemen. I thought that was just mind-boggling, even at 7 years old. As time went on, I loved Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas as tag champions, and of course the Hollywood Blondes as tag champions. The matches that those guys had against each other, amazing. Another good tag match with those belts is Starrcade 92. It's Steamboat and Douglas against Pillman and Barry Windham, so check that out on the network. It's like almost, I think it's like 20, 25 minutes. It's a long match, but man, is it awesome. But yeah, WWF, the Bulldogs, the Hart Foundation, Demolition, all big fans of them, fans of Money Inc. and the Steiners. The Nasty Boys were even enjoyable at times. Just a lot of good, New Age Outlaws in the Attitude Era. Bulldog and Owen. There's a team that gets, overlooked, I think, because they didn't make any magazine covers, but they had a pretty long title reign, and they were really good. They had a lot of good matches with Furnace and LaFawn and such. So, yeah. Also, ECW, what can you say? You had a lot of interesting tag matches there. Raven and Richards were an interesting team. Of course, the makeshift team of Raven and Tommy Dreamer. The Eliminators, the Gangstas, Candido and Lance Storm. I mean, there was just RVD and Sabu, right? So a lot of great tag teams. The AWA I'm not too familiar with. I didn't watch AWA as a kid. I just know of the champions. So the only things I've ever seen of the AWA are from the WWE Network or or the DVD releases. But for what I've seen, some of the stuff was good. The Rockers against Playboy, was this Playboy Buddy Rose and Doug Summers? Those tag matches, right? Pretty cool. All right, so let me know who your favorite tag teams are, your favorite tag matches. Even now, if you're watching, who's your favorite tag teams now? It's not that many out there, but I mean, they're trying. All right. So thanks for watching. Thanks to all the new subscribers, the likes, the comments. I appreciate that. And I hope to get more regular in doing these videos again for you guys because I miss it too. So I got the next few days off. I'm hoping to hit out a few more and get my channel growing even a little more. And sorry for those out there who I haven't watched your videos yet or anything. I'm going to get around to it. Just I know Andrea A's uploaded a bit there, her Bret Hart collection and stuff. I saw a new one come up of that. I want to check it out. I'm going to do so eventually today, I'm hoping, sometime. So yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. And until I do my next one, I'll talk to you guys later.